Hey there underwater video and photo enthusiasts, and welcome back to Across the Ocean, the YouTube show for underwater video and photo enthusiasts. My name is Matthias from Zurich.
And I'm James in Miami.
Great to see you all back here with us on YouTube and at Across the Ocean with my good pal over on the other side, James. What's happening in Miami, my friend? How is life over there?
Buddy, the excitement is palpable. I don't know if I know how busy you are, so I don't know if you fully realize this, but we are now counting in days until you and I actually get to dive together. You understand that, right? We're counting in days now. It used to be months, then it was weeks, and now the countdown is in days until you and I actually get to go into the water together and dive and shoot content in the scuba diving paradise that is the Philippines. So I am besides myself with excitement. I can't wait.
I feel the same, absolutely. I can't wait for that day to finally be here to board that airplane. And especially to, put my wetsuit on and get in the water in the same place at the same time with you.
Yeah.
That's gonna be epic. Just
awesome.
Epic. But we still have a little bit of time left until then, and we've got some other stuff to talk about before we get to the Philippines. Today we're gonna be talking about tips and tricks, considerations, better to say, when you pick a dive destination. If your main object is to collect underwater videos and photos while being there, what are the kind of things that we look out for? Because we have obviously quite a bit of experience picking out destinations for our group trips as well as for our private travels that we've done in the past, on what is important for us. So we want to share that with you in today's episode, and I'd like to pass on the word right to you, James, because I know you've got some three really good tips for the viewers. Fire away, please.
Yeah, I do, sure. So I mean, generally my style of diving, I like to go to challenging locations. I like to go to destinations where not a lot of people go, and go out into the wild, and that's always been my thing with travel. When I was a young kid, I was like backpacking. I'd just throw a backpack on with no real plan and just go for it. With diving, obviously you need to be a little bit more considerate, and there's some contingencies you want to plan for and be a little bit more intentional, particularly when it comes to traveling with gear and what you actually want to shoot and film. You want to be a little bit more deliberate there. But I like to go to challenging locations like the wild coast of South Africa and shoot in insane seas and raging currents and all this fun stuff, because that's my jam. So when I choose a destination overall, just a super high level tip here, I look for a challenge. That's what I personally enjoy. That being said, I think that if you are picking a dive destination to specifically go and film, you should consider your experience as a diver, your experience as an underwater filmmaker, and balance that against the expected dive conditions, right? So if you want to just start out, or you're a newbie diver and you want to get into underwater filming, or you're an experienced diver but you have a brand new rig that you're not comfortable with yet, consider what the dive conditions are going to be in the destinations that you're choosing. Of course, for underwater filming, it's easy to get good footage when you've got 100 meters of visibility. So if you want to go and get crystal clear shots, pick a place that has reliably good visibility. But then you also want to think about the actual dive conditions and how challenging it's going to be to shoot. What kind of boat will you be using, or is it shore diving, and how are you going to get in and out of the water with your camera gear? Is there current? Right? Are you going to have to be finning into the current to film what you want to be filming? What's the swell like? How easy is it going to be to manage the camera on the surface? All that kind of stuff. So dive conditions in the destinations you're considering, definitely a major point for me. Second thing I would consider is, what is the focus of what you want to film, right? Why are you going to a place? What What is your dream shot, your money shot, your bucket list shot, if you will? Is there a particular animal that you need to go to a specific destination to shoot? And before we started rolling here, we were talking about the Philippines trip, and I said to Matthias, I said, look, can you promise me that we're going to see mandarin fish? Because I've never seen a mandarin fish before, right? So Matthias promised me we're going to see a mandarin fish on every dive, so you'll know in a few weeks' time whether he's a liar or not, okay?
Wait, you remember what else I said?
If we don't see a mandarin fish, you're going to do the mandarin fish dance.
On the very last dive.
Okay. So, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. But, like, for example, that's a reason for me to go to a place, is specifically because that's an animal that I've always wanted to see. I've never seen it before, so I have to go to a particular destination to do that, right? Then, for me personally, one of the things I like to choose a destination based on is the history. Guys that watch my channel, Divers Ready, will know that I am a huge wreck diver, and my jam is maritime architecture, ship design, and particularly with a historical focus. So when I choose a destination, it's often to go to a particular dive site, a particular wreck, and then part of the pleasure for me is the build up to that destination. So for example, next year I'm going to Bikini Atoll in the middle of the Pacific in the Marshall Islands, and I'm specifically going to dive this exact aircraft carrier wreck, the Saratoga. That's where that wreck has ended up as part of the Bikini Atomic tests. So I'm going specifically to that destination because I'm fascinated in certain wrecks. And part of the enjoyment for me of the destination is to do the historical research first, read the books, get the content, look at the photos, so that I have a deeper appreciation when I'm at these fantastic destinations of what I'm looking at. So that's part of my jam, is to go to a specific place because there's a wreck or an animal or something specific that I want to see there. And the only way you're going to know that is by doing your homework and doing your research. So those would be my 3 key points, Matthias. How about you?
Right, all very valid points, and I like to add on my 3 points. The first one would be that I always try not to just think about the diving per se, but also try to think in a bigger picture and see what sort of cultural environment is available in the locations that are there to be picked from. Because I always think that it's much better to also include some topside footage, maybe some drone footage into little clips or films or edits that you create, because they give a much nicer, broader, better perspective on the entire experience that you had while being in that destination and diving that place and experiencing also the culture that was happening on land. So that's definitely something that I would also consider when picking a place. How rich is the culture that you're gonna be able to experience during your surface intervals? Because, yeah, well, they are necessary, right? Then the second tip or consideration that I would make is, if you're diving with new camera gear that you haven't used before, then I would try to pick a familiar place. Don't, overdo things with putting too much pressure on you by diving a place that you haven't dived before and diving with underwater camera gear that you haven't used before. Pick one or the other, ideally. It's not always going to work that way, but ideally I would pick one or the other. And if you have a new big fancy camera rig, it's probably going to be easier to get used to that if you dive in a place that you already know and you're familiar with. And last but not least, think about cost management in terms of bringing all your gear with you on the trip. And nowadays, fortunately, we are lucky enough that we can bring all that stuff to pretty much any place on the world. It's mainly just a question of, are you willing to pay the extra money to bring it on the airplane and get it to the dive destination? Certain destinations are going to be cheaper because the distance that you have to travel to get there is going to be shorter. Others are going to be a little more expensive. So just keep that point in the back of your mind as well. And if you're happy spending that extra money, go ahead and do it. But if you're a little more cost sensitive, then maybe pick a dive destination that is a little closer and will be a little cheaper in that term. So very short and quick, those are my 3 tips and considerations that I would always make when picking a destination specifically for filming or taking photos underwater. Can you agree with this?
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I like the idea we were talking before rolling about, you know, it would be great if we just had direct flights everywhere, but unfortunately that's not the case, and some of these places we really want to go to logistically challenging, shall we say, and you're lugging your luggage and your valuable gear across the world into, you know, some dodgy areas of the country, so it's definitely a consideration for sure, but
True,
not
but,
enough
I mean,
for me to put me off from going on these madcap adventures.
Absolutely, and I mean, this is part of the adventure, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That whole going a little bit, it's not really in the unknown anymore. We're out of that time period, really, but it does have that feel of, that greater feel of going into an adventure, really, if you go on one of these trips. Yeah, I'm totally up for all that sort of stuff, and that's also the reason why the trips that we pick for our group trips are normally trips that are going a little further away, because that adventure part in these trips is, I think, and it's fair to say, pretty important to both of us, right?
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Excellent. Cool. So, that basically sums up our episode for today. I hope that we were able to give you some good insights and good sort of tips and tricks on what to consider when picking your next destination to film and take photos underwater. And if this sounds all too complicated, well, then you can always just join us on one of our group trips, because we guarantee that we've picked them according to that list, and we'll make sure that we get the best possible conditions for filming and taking photos underwater. I will actually put the link, I'll be so blunt to put the link to all our group trips that will happen in the future down in the video description, so feel free to go and check that out. There is a couple of spots still left, I think, on some of the trips coming up, right?
For Indonesia, definitely, yes.
Excellent. Cool. So, James, as always, a pleasure talking to you, discussing stuff, seeing you here on the channel, and before I see you in person, there's gonna be one more of these episodes, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And let's make this a special one, because it's gonna be the last one before we see each other in person again.
Sounds good. Or we could do it live in the Philippines. I don't know, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, definitely. Cool. So thank you guys for being with us today. Have a fantastic time, and we'll see you down below the surface, or next time here on the show across the ocean. Take care and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.